in terms of everything that we've said, there's been a lot of repetition of this sort of key sort of concepts that, whether science is an instrument, whether it's something that leads to truth literally or whatnot. But fundamentally, this really breaks down to your epistemology, what you actually believe about the world, what you actually believe is the roots of knowledge. And that is something which generally as a topic is lacking in the world, and especially in terms of young Muslims, that's also something which is lacking, which is understanding what is your epistemology, how do you know truth, how do you know, whether we should accept something to be literally true or provisionally true. And that is the thing which is going to resolve many of these issues. The other thing is that it's important when we are speaking about scientific arguments or scientific evidence or issues that come up, is always you need to understand that science is not something which we should see as a threat. Even if there's a scientific theory which goes against your religious views, whether it's something about the universe, something about the soul, or something about whatever, something in neuroscience, it doesn't mean that you should become like a anti-science person who rejects science. No, accept it as a working model theory paradigm. Work within that paradigm. Work with the Quranic paradigm that if you save one life, you save the lives of all of humanity, and contribute to humanity. Don't fall into this science versus religion battle.
Awesome. Time to spare as well.
Right, so I just want to thank the Society here again for hosting me and for inviting me to discuss this topic, and I think it was a good exchange. I think that just to, one thing that I would like to briefly briefly mention is this idea of altruism in evolution, which was sort of mentioned a couple of times and I sort of never got to address, and I think it might be a good way of just concluding. So there are some people who seem to think, or even explicitly think, that Darwinian's theory of natural selection should sort of explain literally everything in biology, including all human behaviors. And I think this is false, and I think that this is overreaching. I think Darwin's theory of natural selection explains an awful lot, but it doesn't explain absolutely everything. In particular, human cultural behaviors, not all of those are selected for. The behavior of engaging in a debate about an academic subject, I don't think was the subject of selective pressures in our environment of evolutionary adaptation. I think that's taking it too far. And a lot of evolutionary biologists would agree with that. This is sometimes called hyper-adaptationalism, the idea that everything has to be an adaptation. So I don't necessarily think that all altruistic behaviors or other sorts of behaviors were selected for, and that's an example of something that was sort of mentioned earlier, and this is sort of taking what I think is a valid and very solid scientific theory and pushing it too far. And there can be reasons for this, because people have their own pet scientific projects, or because people have their own pet philosophical ideas that they want to promote. But we should be aware of this. I think that we should understand the science and have a good knowledge of what it says, and also what it doesn't say. And also, I agree with the idea of thinking about epistemology and philosophy of science and taking these seriously. I don't agree with when people like Dawkins and Hawking and so on have said that we should ignore philosophy and it doesn't have anything useful to say. I think that's wrong. I think there are very persuasive evidences in favour of Darwinian evolution by natural selection. At the end of the day, whether you sort of accept these as describing reality or as sort of a working model is going to be dependent on your underlying epistemology. And yes, I think that that's about as good as we can get in an event like this. So thanks again, everyone, and it's been a pleasure.